Welcome back to Matchday Matinee, where every week we combine our love of football and films to dive into the cinematic takes on the beautiful game. This is Mark Alarum, and joining me today is Adam Ducker.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How's it going, Adam? What's new?
Nothing much. Just got off the back of watching Super Size Me 2, which is a pretty good film.
Didn't even know they made a sequel.
Yeah, they did. He opens up his own chicken shop.
Actually, you know what? He made this movie a few years ago. Now I remember he made this movie a few years ago, but I think he got caught in a bit of a Me Too scandal.
Oh, okay.
And they delayed it a couple of years. I do remember hearing about that, yes.
So maybe it's that film then, yeah, okay.
Yeah. They slipped it under the radar. They released it under the radar.
Yep.
So I've been kind of binging a bunch of the Copa 90 stories. One of the ones I recently watched was the South Coast Derby. Southampton and Portsmouth.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of pick your brain about that before we get things started here. We are going to be looking at another English film, but this kind of ties in with that.
Yeah.
So you moved here in what year was it?
2012.
2012. Okay. So what was your history there? I mean, you look at Portsmouth there and there's just so much history. The club is kind of woven into the fabric of the community. It's hard to separate the two, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up there? I mean, we look at here in Mississauga and Peel region in Canada, and it's completely different, right? So from your perspective, I mean, you have the two views. You can kind of see.
And that's where I find, this is why I think I've probably said this to you before, why I really like grounds like Tim Hortons Field, because it's like right bang in the middle of a bunch of houses. And to me, that feels like where a football club should be, because that's like, I don't know if they mentioned it on that Copa 90 thing, but Portsmouth's one of the most densely populated cities in Europe.
Yeah.
I think it is the most densely populated in England, even more so than like London and stuff. So the stadium is surrounded by like terraced houses. And I grew up in
Park,
one.
Right?
Yeah, Fratton Park, yeah. And I grew up in a terraced house that was not right away from the stadium, but close enough that you could hear it on match day and stuff. Like, it's basically down the street. So like nowadays, whenever we go back, me and my dad will always park on our old street and stuff and then walk down. But yeah, it's so intrinsically linked to the identity of the city, and it's a landlocked city as well. So Portsea Island is most of Portsmouth is on that island, and you just can't get away from that fact. And then because we're in the south, there isn't that many clubs close, and Southampton's right there. And there's just a rivalry. I don't really, because I was younger, we left Portsmouth when I was about 12 to move to the north of England. But I do, and I can't remember which game it was, but I do remember there being one game where we played them, where we basically weren't allowed to leave the house because people were picking up bricks like off people's front wall, like off your front garden, and just picking up bricks and tossing them at each other. So then it's just like, yeah, everything you see there's real. Like, we just hate each other. And it even you can bump into somebody and you won't, if they're wearing a Southampton shirt and you're wearing Portsmouth shirt, you're not talking to them. Been down the 2000, I can't remember what it was. We beat them once 4-1. I can't remember the date, and I was at university at the time, and went to the pub with my friends, Portsmouth shirt on, and then there was a Southampton guy there with his friends too, his shirt on, and it's just like, there was like an atmosphere, the whole pub had an atmosphere just because there was two of us in there.
That's awesome.
You
just see like throughout the city, I mean, the symbol of Portsmouth, it's a half moon, it's a crescent moon and the star. Yeah, it's on literally everything, right?
Yeah, because it was the coat of arms back in the day, and then became like the city crest and the club's crest, and the club tried to change it a couple of times, and it's never stuck. We had an anchor and a star for a while back in the 80s. It's never kind of stuck. It's just part of the city. Yeah, like every road sign has that crescent on there.
Yeah, it's just the iconography of it. It's simple and it's gorgeous, right?
Yeah. I love it. It's one of the best. I might be biased, but I think it's one of the best badges there is.
And one of the things that's so unique too about it is like the history behind it, right? Like all of our clubs here, you can tie back to either NASL or turn of the century. I mean, when you look at Portsmouth, even the origins of the nickname Pompeii, right? You can't trace that back to anything from what I can tell.
No, it's all, it's the city's history, and it's all part and parcel of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost legendary, right? And then the rivalry with Southampton, like in this documentary, they're going over why they hated each other so much, and even the origin of some of the nicknames like Scummers.
Yeah, and Scummers and Skates, yeah.
Yeah, the skate. Have you seen the Copa 90 Derby Days on this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
The
that's
lady explaining the skate origin.
Yeah, and then I guess they talk about all that dockyard stuff as well, don't they? And it's apparently a myth. But then that's the weird thing. So then my dad's a northerner, moved down to England, knew a bit about it, but then everybody down there told him about it. Like, nah, it's true. They did this, this, and this. And there's always somebody who knows somebody who was affected by it, kind of. So like, it's like, yeah, my great granddad, his ship was like, couldn't get any fish because they did this and this. And it's just like, apparently it's all absolute bollocks. There's no truth to it at all.
It's always like a friend of a friend. Or,
yeah.
Like my uncle told me this.
Yeah,
my uncle works at Nintendo.
Yeah, that kind of myth.
That kind of thing
never happened. Yeah,
that's cool.
It's funny. Yeah, it's a different thing. And then that copper night he goes into the football hooliganism, and which we might get to one day if we do that film Cass Pennant. He rolled with the Portsmouth crew for a while, I believe, to do one of his books. So yeah, we might be able to look into that culture a bit more because they were one of the more famous firms, I guess, back in the day.
And then how was it like? I mean, living there where football is everything, right? It's part of the daily culture and lifestyle. And then you move here, and it's kind of on the weekends. People go to clubs, and it's. I mean, you don't really have one club that's tied uniquely to the city.
No, and it's really hard to wrap your head around. And I think it's partly because of the geography here. Like every city in England has a team no matter what. Like they might be further down in the pyramid, but every city has, out of the 92 clubs in the like professional system, every city's pretty much major cities covered. Or if not, they're in the like first couple of divisions of the non-league even. So yeah, even those people, it's always somebody to match to go watch, then go out on a night out and celebrate if it goes well. And it's completely different here. I think even the drinking culture is different, right? Part of that plays into it because you can walk to a stadium, get absolutely smashed drunk, and then just carry on your night as if all in one fell swoop, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of cool. You mentioned about Hamilton, how they have their CFL team, right? And now they do have their CPL club, their football club, where those bars and people's homes are literally right on top of that stadium. So you do kind of have a glimpse of that culture. And
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, if we could have that here in Peel Region with the Mississauga Club eventually, we would love that. But that's the dream.
And that's the thing as well. The worst stadiums in England are all the ones that are on the outskirts of cities that have no transport infrastructure. And they're just a pain in the ass to get to. No parking or anything. So, yeah.
And atmosphere as well, right?
Atmosphere, identikit. Which kind of plays into this a little bit, this film we're about to cover, actually.
Yes, from the South Coast, we're heading to East London. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for today's matinee feature, the 2018 action thriller Final Score, directed by Scott Mann. When terrorists descend upon Upton Park and kidnap ex-soldier Michael Knox's niece, he employs all of his skills to rescue her and foil their plans for mass destruction. Set against a backdrop of West Ham United's final match at the historic Boleyn Ground, this film stars Dave Bautista as former American soldier Michael Knox, Lara Peake as his niece and London native Danny, Ray Stevenson as Russian terrorist Arkady Belayev, and the former James Bond himself, Pierce Brosnan, as his presumed deceased brother, Dmitry Belov.
So, bare bone, simple plot is it's the last ever game at Fratton Park, and two terrorists try to hold the stadium ransom pretty much to try and get this guy Dmitry. But before all that happens, it kind of goes back and we see a made up Russian state, I guess, fighting for independence.
So did you catch the name of it?
Scavovia or something?
No, it's Sokovia, which is crazy because that's the exact same name that they use for the fake Russian city in the Avengers.
Oh, right. Of course it is, yeah.
Which it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which Dave Bautista is also part of as Drax. So you figure at one point he would even bring that up and say, hold on, this fake name is already taken. But
apparently
anyways.
Not. So yeah, they start off with like a little intro of showing you the revolution that happens. Interestingly, we get to hear Frankie Goes to Hollywood as well, Two Tribes Again, which we heard in Mike Bassett when England played Argentina. So yeah, we see this guy Dmitry basically leading a revolution, and he gets taken out by an airstrike, and his brother Arkady gets captured. Several years later, Arkady comes to believe that his brother's death was faked, and that they managed to track him down to a football stadium. He's at a game between Dynamo FC and West Ham United, which thankfully Dave Bautista, otherwise known as Michael Knox, Knox. He has a ticket for that game, and he takes his niece Danny, whose dad has served in Afghanistan with Michael Knox, and unfortunately passed away. And then, they basically go from there. Michael Knox realizes something's kind of amiss at the game and soon gets caught up in their terrorist plot, which basically revolves around them threatening the stadium with C4 to get Dimitri out of the stadium because they want him back. It's kind of at the beginning you think he wants to kill him, but then later as we get through the movie we kind of learn that's not what their motives are.
No, he's the only guy who can re-spark the revolution. Some Americans show up. Agent Cho kind of steps in as well to kind of help out and kind of reveals why Dimitri cannot be like let out that Dimitri's alive, because it would lead to another revolution, or at least an attempt, and it would cause widespread destabilization across like the ex-Soviet Union. And that's pretty much it, and with some other twists along the way that I'm sure we'll get to as we chat about it. We're going to get into full spoilers here, I think.
Stadium, yeah. So the first thing I've gone.
I think we haven't been mentioning it early on, but I guess it'd be good to tell the listeners where they can watch this. So this is available on Amazon Prime. And I guess we will try and do that in the future as well. If there is a movie that's available easily on Netflix or Prime Video, or here in Canada, maybe Crave, we'll be sure to make mention of that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam, you were going to say?
So the first thing about this film for me was the fact that this made up this alternate history of West Ham. Even she had a poster in her bedroom that was the League Cup 2015, and I don't think West Ham were in the League Cup final in 2015.
When all of these competitions were made up, right? This match is taking place during the European Cup semifinals, which I'm guessing is their version of the Champions League.
Well, I guess that's what the Champions League used to be called, right? Before.
Yeah, exactly. But
so it's just all this made-up nonsense to make West Ham a better team than they were for no reason other than perhaps they needed to puff themselves up a bit to let them use the stadium.
That opening cutscene that you had mentioned before the titles came up.
Yeah.
Did you get like Call of Duty cutscene vibes from that?
Oh, when this guy's being tortured and stuff and gets stabbed and everything. Yeah.
Like when you play a new Call of Duty game, and I guess it's the Modern Warfare series. And it's those cutscenes you try to skip quickly to get to the actual video game. Like they were obviously inspired by that, with the green overlay and the quick cuts and the After Effects graphics. But
yeah, for sure.
completely useless, I guess, in this sense.
Yeah, totally. So we kind of get a little bit of backstory to start with. That's before we get to the game, I guess.
Yeah.
Knox goes to see his niece, and she headbutts him, which is a bit weird because she thinks that I guess she doesn't know who he is because she's trying to sneak out of the house and he grabs her from behind. And this is another thing. This isn't as typical here, right? She lives above a pub, which she talks about later when she says she's a pub lass. Like that's pretty common, like older pubs. Like the landlord would live upstairs, like not necessarily the owner of the pub, but the landlord, like the manager or whatever, would live upstairs, and as part of their like pay is that they get living accommodation kind of above the pub.
You do see it in a few places, but here, I mean, because there are so many suburbs, not as much. I mean, in downtown Toronto, you would see that in like a condo building, right? Like the lower level may have a pub in it or a restaurant. Because we're so like suburban, it's more so houses and then box plazas.
Yeah, and more planned to not have a pub in the middle of a suburb. I guess it can't be. But it's cool. It's a cool little detail that comes up later. And then, so they decide they convince the mum to go to the house. There's one really weird thing as well. This is like, I noticed a lot of continuity errors in this film, like weird things. And one is right at the beginning when he says to the widow of his brother, he says, "Oh no, I came here for this shitty warm pints of beer," and she's pouring a pint of beer that has a crap ton of head, And then she passes it to him. It has no head at all. It's like completely gone. And it's just like, looks like the flattest. It looks like apple juice almost. And I'm just like, where did it go?
They made it terrible on purpose. This movie, I watched a few red carpet interviews with the stars of this movie.
Sure.
And so the whole movie was based around the concept that they were able to get Boleyn Ground before they tore it down. So they reverse engineered the entire movie backwards from that. So keep that in mind when we kind of talk about things later on, how they just pay no respect to soccer.
Right.
It's because it was just the convenience of having the stadium that was about to be demolished that they were able to do whatever they wanted with it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So some stuff may have actually got destroyed along the way, I guess.
It's possible, yeah. So it's funny, like they interviewed the director, Scott Mann,
yeah,
and it was basically like they came to him with a script and the concept of, hey, we have this old football stadium that we can do whatever we want with it. Are you interested? And you're like, okay, who cares about soccer, but let's do it. And then Dave Bautista. So Dave Bautista used to be a pro wrestler. Mm-hmm. He kind of had his big like ascension to the main event in WWE back around 2005, I want to say. Okay. And then at that point, he decided that he wanted to get into films, which is kind of normal. I mean, like The Rock was probably the biggest star to come out of wrestling.
What does that? Like, I've never understood that. How come every wrestler doesn't do that at some point? Is it only like the main, like most charismatic ones, or like the people that win Pretty that much. Get that chance to go through, or are those two things the same kind of?
Like wrestling is essentially acting with stuntmen, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of them just aren't great actors, and the ones that are do cross over.
Right.
But I mean, it's hard to break that stigma of being a wrestler.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
because
very
it's
few
kind of
do, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of looked down upon, right? I mean, there was a point there, mid or late 90s, when WWF back then was all the rage, and I think it was popular with everyone. That's kind of when I got back into it for that little while there. But yeah, I mean, there's only very few guys that can cross over. The Rock being the biggest one, and then back in the 80s, you had Hulk Hogan, who starred in a bunch of crappy action thrillers.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, it's very hard for guys to cross over. And then so Dave Bautista, he became WWE champion around, I think 2005 it was. And then after that, the company started to push all these guys into all these different action movies. So you had movies like The Marine. There was a really good one with Stone Cold where it was like a Running Man battle royale, stuck on an island, elimination game type thing.
That sounds amazing.
You know what I'm talking about? It was really good.
I've never heard of that film.
If I ever remember the name of it, you should watch it. It's a good movie. But yeah, so these guys started to get opportunities because I think WAF started a production studio at that point as well.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so then Batista was one of those guys. But he did something kind of smart. So he saw a future past wrestling because he actually got into it pretty late. I think he was in his early 30s when he started to kind of hit his stride and be featured on the main card.
Right, okay.
And you're basically throwing your body around for like half hour, right?
Right, so and then I guess only the big ones managed to stay around till they're like really old, like how Undertaker is still here.
Yeah,
he's like
even Undertaker, he wrestles once a year, right? So he'll wrestle once a year at WrestleMania, and then he'll spend the next 6 months going through rehab. So it's tough, right? Yeah. It's kind of funny how like little respect it gets when these guys are destroying their bodies. Yeah. But yeah, so he saw kind of an out, and he wanted to become an actor, and he actually did begin to take a lot of acting lessons. He got his first big break, I'd say, with Guardians of the Galaxy as Drax.
Yeah.
So that's when people started to see his comedic acting range and kind of started to see him as more than a wrestler. And then he was in Blade Runner 2049 a couple of years ago.
Like a really like understated performance kind of as a replicant that was kind of trying to hide.
Yeah, so he got some more kind of acting cred for that. But he did this interview on the red carpet. Sorry, going all the way back to that. So he did this interview on the red carpet where he's talking about how he likes to do characters. He's more of a character actor. So he really likes to get into the roles and tap into what these characters are about. And then he just pretty much flat out said, he's like, but you know, they came to me with this script and I'm trying to figure out what this guy's about. And really he's about nothing. So he's like, I kind of struggled to figure out who he was because he's just a guy who all this stuff happens to.
He has a bit of guilt.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess that's the extent of it, right? There's like one scene in the movie where he kind of feels guilty about his brother being killed by his orders. So this whole movie is basically we have this opportunity to use a stadium that's falling apart and blow it up. And it just so happens to be West Ham Stadium. So let's work them into the plot and let's go. Let's fly into East London, film this thing, and let's go.
I guess that's the other thing, right? Like, we'll probably get into it later. The similarities between this and like Die Hard are pretty unreal. And I guess you bring up a good point. Like, before John McClane goes into that building in the first film, we kind of have a sense. Tower? Yeah, before he gets into Nakatomi Towers, we kind of have a sense of like who he is. We know a bit about his wife and stuff. We know like the backstory of like how he doesn't like the people she works with and stuff. So we have stuff before he goes to our stuff. In this, we have none of that. It's just
he sits in the car. He sits in the taxi. And he's like, what is this on the radio? Soccer? Oh.
Yeah.
Shit sport or something.
Yeah. Oh, I don't understand a word of it or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone who was involved in this movie hates soccer or football, right? You get that pretty clearly.
Like a low level, like, what is this crap?
So I made a quick list. So he gets in the taxi and right away he says that soccer sucks, turn it off on the radio. They go to the stadium and they see the Dynamo supporters? It's not Dynamo Kiev, right? It's just like a fake
Dynamo FC, they're called.
Yeah. So they just see some supporters with players in the streets, and he's like, "What are these guys doing?" Oh, they're just they're supporters from the other club. Assholes. And then he gets to the stadium. He wants a hot dog. The hot dogs suck. He's going into Boleyn Grounds, and the turnstiles get stuck.
Yep, because he's too big.
Yeah. And Danny is explaining the away goals rule to him, and it's met with kind of like disgust on him, like, everything about this is stupid.
Yeah, he just doesn't care at all.
Yeah. It's clear like everyone involved in this just hates the sport.
The other thing is, you just remind me about the hot dogs. When that American guy comes later and has one, and he makes one, and it's just like, and he's like, not bad. And it's like, those rollover hot dogs are the real brand, and they suck, and everybody knows they suck. And it's just really weird to have the only other American character in the film, eat one and say, this is good.
Yeah. But next to a dead body.
Yeah, next to a dead body, which is another Die Hard copy, right? That's how John McClane gets the attention of the police, because the police come, don't they? And there's nothing to see, and he throws that body down onto the limo driver's car
with the note on it.
Yeah, and that's how he kind of does the same thing with the C4 here.
So
weird.
He goes to the soccer game with his niece. She kind of ditches him to go with her dickhead boyfriend.
Yeah.
That guy was the worst.
He was the worst. Stuff happens.
But what's that?
Stuff happens later, and you realise, he was a dick.
Yeah.
But
you have that. Also, we're introduced to how do you pronounce his name? Was it? It's Faisal.
Faisal, right? Yes.
Faisal. And I think the first scene you meet him, he's confronted by the racist old lady.
Yeah. Who says they probably don't have phones where you're from.
Yeah, he's like, Mom, I'm from Brixton by way of Baghdad.
Yeah. And then he starts kind of yelling at her, saying that she subjects him to emotional terrorism.
Yeah.
And
then he calls up to the guy in the booth, and he says he is an assistant to the assistant, which I guess is an Office reference.
Yeah, it has to be, right? And it's just like, like spot on, like.
There's so many weird things.
Office reference. Yeah, it's just weird, right? Because it's written by Americans, so it's just like, why did they 100%. Think they thought that would kick in? They'd be like, that will remind people of the English Office as well, because there's the same characters. And there's an assistant to the assistant in that. So put that in, that'll be funny.
Did you catch when he's walking up to his niece and he says, she gets away from him the first time, and he finds her and he says, "You're killing me, Smalls."
I missed that. No, what's that from?
It's a reference to a 90s baseball film called The Sandlot, which is like a beloved film here in America, in North America. But it's it's a random thing to put in a soccer movie, right?
Because presumably not many people who like that movie are going to come and watch it. It's mostly going to be people like me probably who think, big budget action film.
Yeah, it's so random.
Yeah. So the stadium gets locked down pretty early on. We get introduced to the goons that are helping Arcady take down the stadium, and they kind of lock down the entire stadium, so it's cut off to the outside world. One thing I liked as well, they show you all the gates shutting, but as if that's not enough, they CGI like some digital locks that confirm that it's locked. And it's just like this big red thing that says locked. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what they were doing. It's like insulting the intelligence of the viewer, like every step it can.
And then at this point, we get the cell phone towers knocked out, right?
Yeah.
And so the first thing you hear is, my Instagram doesn't work.
Yes, my Instagram's fucked, somebody says. And it's like, oh, God. And then, it shows you, it like pans around the stadium, doesn't it? And it's like so many people with their phones out. And it's just like, yep, that is the modern football experience these days.
But that's what I don't get. So these guys have locked the doors.
Yeah.
They've knocked out every cell phone in the stadium. And then everyone stays there until the 90th minute. Nobody has to leave for any reason. Nobody questions everyone's cell phones being out. And they say, like, don't let anybody in the stadium know they're being held hostage because it'll cause a panic and a stampede.
It's just like, why knock the cell phones out then?
Yeah.
Leave them on.
Yeah. But nobody would care. Everyone would literally just sit there and be like, I guess, my family's fine. Who cares?
Yeah.
It makes zero sense.
Yeah. And then it's not long after this that we kind of get, and the way they get into the police part of the stadium, like the security thing, it's like they are the good old like scrub the video back so that no one can see it, and we'll just kill this guy and then just walk in and they'll watch the old footage, and it's like,
But he literally he scrubs it back like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So all you'd have to do is watch it for 30 seconds and you would see them come in and kill the guard.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so they kill that guard and then
did you hear him yell while he got shot?
Yeah, it's like, it reminded me of, you remember like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark?
Yeah.
Old games of that era. They would all fall over acrobatically while screaming. They kind of did that. And then they walk into the security thing and shoot like two other guys. And then this is where Arcady kind of reveals his plot to the police chief officer. And he's kind of like, our intentions are to threaten you guys. It's not violent. It's like bullshit. You've already killed at least 3 people. And it's just like, you are assholes. Like, you're not just here for your own personal thing. You'll do whatever it takes.
Arcady's played by Ray Stevenson. Are you familiar with him at all?
Yeah, I recognized him. I forgot to look up what else he'd been in.
So I know him from Punisher, obviously. So he was in the
second one,
the second one, Warzone, which is actually a really good film. It's I guess it's kind of like this, man. It's like a gratuitous action thriller, much like this, and it's directed by Lexi Alexander, who relates back to this because she actually directed Green Street Hooligans, which is the other West Ham United centric film, which I'm sure we'll get to eventually on Matchday Matinee, either this season or next for sure. And she doesn't really get any work because she's like spoken out about a lot of the like misogyny in Hollywood, I guess. So she's kind of been held down.
Okay, it's like blacklisted almost.
Yeah, unfortunately. But Punisher Warzone was an awesome movie. He was really good in it. But he was also in Dexter, one of the later seasons.
Oh, okay. Something I've not watched.
Dexter was really good up until like the 4th season and then just kind of completely fell off. But he was like the lone bright spot. I think it was like the 6th or 7th season where he plays a homosexual hitman.
Oh, okay.
Who Dexter has to kill because that's just Dexter's MO. But he was like the lone bright spot. And ever since then, I've kind of like watched out for projects that he's been in. So we get him in this, but unfortunately, he's just kind of like one note.
Yeah, one note, Russian guy.
Yeah.
Another thing that gets me, this isn't unique to this film as well. So when we get the flashback at the beginning of the film when they're torturing guys and stuff, they're speaking in Russian.
Yeah.
Right up until the point they get into the stadium, they're still speaking in Russian. And then they suddenly start speaking amongst themselves in English. And it's just like, so that's for our benefit, nobody else. Like, It's just really, I've never understood it. Why, when they would be speaking to each other, would they speak in English?
No idea. It would make more sense for them, even on the radio when they're calling in. And it's like, well, I guess they do respond. They say "da" right instead of "yes." Yeah,
when they're doing the check-in. Yeah.
And then Michael Knox responds "da," but it doesn't sound Russian enough, so he gets called out.
Yeah.
And Faisal at this point follows him around and almost becomes, I don't know, the only thing I could think of was, do you remember the original Judge Dredd with Stallone?
Yeah.
How Rob Schneider is kind of like his goofy caught in the middle sidekick?
Yeah, it's kind of like that, isn't it?
Kind of like channels that energy, yeah.
I also thought it's not quite the same, but a little bit like Samuel L. Jackson in Die Hard with a vengeance, right? Because he's following John McClane around the city, and
that makes way more sense.
So because he plays He's like a mathematician or something now, a scientist. I can't remember. It's not like your typical wisecracking Samuel L. Jackson. He's kind of a little bit nerdier, kind of. I forget what he does, but yeah, that's the only thing I could compare it to.
That makes way more sense, which makes sense because they are kind of copying Die Hard note for note.
Yeah, but note for note, yeah.
But there wasn't. Have you ever heard of? I think it was called Sudden Death with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
I might have seen it.
It's a very similar concept to this, which was almost the exact same thing, except it was a hockey arena.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this isn't. It wasn't an original concept to begin with, but it's even less of an original concept in the sports context.
Ridiculous. So it's not long after this bit that Mike Knox sends Faisal to go and look for Danny because he's like, I got to split up from her, I need to find it. And they end up locked in the kitchen. And then he sends him down in the little chute that they send the food down into because the doors get locked because they steal a key card that gets blocked. And then this is the weird thing for me. Why did this fight happen so early on? Like basically the battle between the two massive units in the film happens like super early on when they fight in the kitchen. I
think they needed to get these characters out of the way.
I just feel like they wanted that would have been something they'd built up to, but then I guess they go with a whole two of the terrorists are in a relationship with each other.
Yeah, that's true.
So then kills the big guy, and then she wants revenge throughout the whole film. But
the murder of Vlad fuels Tatiana's revenge. Yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah,
and that might be one of the best action scenes / deaths in the film.
Okay, so we're not going to have trivia this week because we're on a bye, so there's only two of us. There's no Regev, so we're going to have a bye week for trivia. But I want to ask at the end of our review here, what was your favorite kill? So I've got 4 of note. Once we get to that, we'll break it down.
So, all right. Are we going to talk about the kill now? Or are we going to just skate past it?
No. So, okay, let's talk about the kills. There was the first guy who got his fingers chopped off and went flying into the fryer.
Yeah.
And then he had sorry?
Yeah, like his fingers chopped off into the fryer and then face into the fryer.
No, that was the other guy.
Oh.
So this guy the first guy had his fingers cut off and then thrown into the fryer, and then he had a natural gas line in his face, which exploded
when he shoots his shotgun. Right? Yes.
And this is the guy that's eventually thrown off the building onto the hot dog cart, as you mentioned.
Yep. Okay.
And then we have Vlad, who is, like you were saying, just an absolute unit. He's got like the tattoos on the side of his face and everything. He looks like one of the Blood Pack from Blade 2.
Yep, definitely.
One of those guys. Yeah. So this guy, so I guess ironically enough, I'm sure it wasn't a coincidence, but he's impaled on Michael Knox's knife. So Vlad is impaled on the knife, and then he goes face first into the fryer.
Yeah.
That's the guy you were thinking of, right?
Yes.
And then there's a couple others. So when we get to those, we'll go on. So these two guys, I think, were the main kills in this one. And then there's a couple like other nameless henchmen who are killed, but meh.
Yeah, there's names like just in black hoodies and don't get any lines or anything. Yeah.
Nameless hooligans or whatever. Yeah.
So I guess when this happens, they start to, and then they realize he's thrown a body. So this is when they decide to like up the ante a bit, and they storm into Sky Sports studio.
Oh, right.
I forget the presenter's name, but he's a real Sky Sports presenter. And then in the background, one of the pundits I recognized is Tony Cottee, who used to be a striker for West Ham.
Yeah.
They shoot those two. They shoot the presenter. They get the presenter to do a little broadcast out to say, this is our demands. We want Dimitri, and then shoot him dead and the other two pundits. It's like a bit weird.
They're not messing around, I guess. Yeah.
And then this whole argument of like, will you sacrifice 35,000 souls for one? We just want Dimitri.
So did you get the sense that like Dave Bautista or Michael Knox didn't care about anybody else in the stadium? He only wanted to save his niece.
Yeah. Which is another thing that's different from Die Hard at a point, right? Like John McClane becomes motivated. Yeah, he's heroic. And this is not like, even towards the end, he says towards the end, he gets Faisal to clear out the stand. He doesn't care. Couldn't care less.
Everyone else could die, but if he were to get his niece, he would be good. Like, just get his niece and get out of there.
Yeah, I guess the only slightly heroic we'll get to at the end is when he does the like switch and bait kind of when they're swapping hostages, where he goes towards him pretending to be Dimitri, but otherwise doesn't care. Yeah, just does not care. Even when it's around somewhere around this point where they realise there's a crap ton of. No, actually, there's a little bit before this, but when they get to the C4 and stuff.
And it's wired all around the ground.
Yeah, and like he just doesn't care, essentially, or he doesn't act like he cares at least.
No, he literally has like zero interest in playing this role. I think. Like he didn't pull any punches when he was saying like he wanted to get into character, and there is no character. So.
So yeah, this is around. So not long after this, they throw the guy out. American guy shows up, reveals to the chief of police that Dimitri's not dead. We gave him extensive plastic surgery, which is why the guy in the stadium can't find it using their like facial recognition stuff.
Yeah,
because he's been made to look like Pierce Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan.
The guy eats the hot dog, and then we cut back to Danny being with a dick boyfriend. This is kind of where. She makes the joke about being a pub kid, and then he's trying to like basically get it on with her, and he's a bit of, this is where he comes out as a dick because he's like, listen, I don't want to listen to you whine about your dad and uncle anymore. And so then
her dead dad,
your dead dad, and it's just like, what the so then she beats the crap out of him and just leaves him in a stairwell. And then the next scene that I got written down after this is the bike scene, which is
this is the chase around the roof?
No. Well, it builds up to that eventually.
Okay.
But it starts with him on the bike
going through the concourse.
Yeah. And this is a like horrific green screen when it's the close-ups of him on the bike. It's just like this blurred background of like, it just doesn't look real at all.
No, it feels like it's 10 minutes long of them just like going through, like how big is this stadium really, right?
Yeah.
It's so perfect that you can drive through it. Like none of the hallways are smaller than the other. And
like it's one big bowl, and it's like, that's not how a football stadium is, because it's all segregated by whichever section you're in. You can't just walk around the whole thing. And
there's going to be like a club section, right?
Yeah, exactly. All the away fans are somewhere, like we know that they're there. And it's just like, he goes around the entire thing.
Have you been to the stadium?
No, I never went to it, no.
So do you think it would be like, as a West Ham supporter, do you think it's unreal to see your stadium kind of in this film and see its concourses, everything that you kind of know featured so prominently?
Yeah. And also, I don't know how much you know about how the move went down and how unhappy they were all about it.
Yeah.
Like, they moved it to a different side of town base, essentially.
Yeah.
And then there was so much in that area, like pubs and stuff and everything, that relied on Boleyn Ground being in that area.
It's a shopping mall now.
Yeah, and they knocked it down and then moved to this soulless Olympic stadium that they've tried their best to, but people just seem to hate. Like, that's a club that's not in a good place at all. So to go back, and if you're a West Ham fan, I don't think you'd be particularly happy about them pissing around.
So it's almost like spitting on the grave.
Yeah,
right?
kind of.
Yeah.
So not long before it's knocked down, you guys just handed it over to some film producers and went, yeah, do what you want. We couldn't give a shit. We've already sold the ground. It's fine. It's built on. It's fine. Do what you want.
They finished out the Premier League season at Boleyn Ground, and then they filmed this, I think, in September.
Something like that, yeah. August, September, yeah.
And I think they did play a charity match after the final official match.
Yeah, it rings a bell. Some testimonial or something for somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this would have been like the last. I wonder if they actually did fill the seats for this film.
Yeah, I was trying to look to see, or it was hard to tell, right? And because they didn't use any real players, so it wasn't like archive footage from a made-up game. It was all made-up players. And we'll get to that when we talk about footy flicks, I guess. But
I was trying to look into it. I couldn't see anything about that, if it was all CG or if they had filmed footage during a match.
Yeah, and I was trying to look more, because after you told me about how like Mike Bassett was all CG, I was like, right, I'll keep an eye out here. But I couldn't really necessarily tell anything, so who knows? Yeah.
Like on CG as well, I got to admit, all of the action scenes were actually really well done. There wasn't any overuse of CG.
No, the only thing that got me was that bike where it looked like he was...
Oh, yeah.
Whereas behind him, it almost reminded me of X-Men with like Quicksilver, where like the background's going really fast behind him. It was only the like face onto him. The rest of it looked fine. Yeah,
that was the only part of the movie that almost looked like parody.
Yeah, and it's just like, what? He's going that fast that it's like breaking the sound barrier.
Perfectly through the doors and everything. Yeah, that looked like fun.
Yeah.
So they eventually end up on the roof, right?
Yeah, like endlessly on the roof too. Like they come up off the roof, down, back down. It's just like this never-ending.
They're just doing laps. It's like a excite bike on the roof. Yeah. So this scene there, this part of the film, they juxtapose him doing this giant jump off of the roof.
Yes.
With the West Ham free kick.
Yes, yeah.
Which was actually pretty cool.
And do you know what I thought they were going to do? As it was happening, it was obvious it was going to happen. I thought as he landed on the roof of the stadium, it was going to show you like some fans below hearing a thud. But then the goal went in and they all started celebrating and didn't really notice it. But it didn't show you anything. There was no like fan. Like we said, this could have been anything going on at this time. Yeah. It didn't need to be a football game other than to arbitrarily give a time when the C4 was going to explode. Yeah.
But you would hear a motorcycle like ripping it on the roof.
Yeah, you would definitely. Because it's like old tin roof kind of style, like corrugated iron.
Like the motorcycle engine, yeah.
Yeah, like ridiculous. Just like a little bit later on where he's swinging across the scoreboard. Like the 85th minute, and it's like no one noticed.
Nobody cared, yeah.
Or even like a little bit before this when they get the police chief to call the cops on him, and he's just stood there like fighting cops, and everyone's still just watching the game. Like no bother. This big massive guy comes down, bloody face. On the
sidelines, right?
Just like they're on the sidelines. He's just beating the shit out of the cops.
So he does. How many movies starring wrestlers have you seen? Like a decent amount of the Rock's movies and stuff, right?
Yeah. I've seen enough of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So he does a clothesline at one point.
Yes.
But I'm always disappointed when a wrestler who's become an actor doesn't do his finishing move during an action scene. So like The Rock always pulls out the rock bottom, like Fast and Furious movies. I think he even did it in like Scorpion King.
Yeah, and I think he did it in what do you call it? Jumanji as well.
Yeah. So like I always love seeing that little touch. So I was hoping you'd pull out the Bautista bomb, which is like a power bomb, but never did it. We got a clothesline at least, but I was left disappointed in that.
Yeah. So Terrace used the police to get him. And it's around this point where the kill switch becomes like the film's MacGuffin.
Oh, right.
Arcady has a kill switch that is the only way to deactivate the...
But the first time he shows it to, I think he shows it to Michael Knox, it looks like lipstick. And they show it for like a split second.
Oh, it looks like one of those little laser pointers that people used to have.
Yeah, like it doesn't look like the, usually they have the kill switch with like the literal switch on it and the little radio antenna. You're like, oh yeah, that's a kill switch.
Or something shaped like almost like a joystick, like an old school joystick with a big button on top of it.
The old Atari ones or something.
Yeah, and it's just like, no, this is some lame.
He holds the lipstick up and I'm like, what's that lipstick have to do with anything? And I'm like, oh, it's a kill switch. Okay.
Yeah.
So Pierce Brosnan is introduced as Dimitri.
Yeah. Who's like a normal guy. He doesn't want to leave. He says he wants to watch the football. It's not until Bautista gets a gun out on him. He's like, oh, crap.
Oh, that's right. Then he realizes what this is all about. But I'm guessing he had a name change. So somebody addressing him as Dimitri should have been shocking to him as well.
Yeah, in the first place. Yeah, not. And you wouldn't have thought he'd be like, no, I want to watch this game. It's the semi-final. It's like, he just called you by your name that you've not been called for 17 years since the day you were killed.
Well, let me just watch a semi-final and then we can get back to this.
Yeah. It's just super weird. And then, so they get up to the roof and that's where Faisal's been knocked out and lost Danny. And the helicopter's there with Cho waiting to hand over Dimitri.
Oh, wait, so we had motorcycle chase already?
Yeah, that was in between this bit, yeah.
So Tatiana, trying to avenge her boyfriend's death, drives off the roof, and then she's also impaled on a pole. Right?
Yes.
And then it's at that point she tells him the kill switch was a fake.
Yeah, it was bullshit, yeah. She says bullshit, because I wrote on my notes, crazy woman is impaled and reveals this. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that's another one. That's number 4. So we skipped over number 3. At one point, Michael Knox faces down against a bunch of grunts, I guess, like for lack of a better term. And he rigs a cell phone to a C4 explosive.
This is around the same time when he's with Dimitri, isn't it? Because Dimitri, they're cornered in the bathroom, and then Dimitri's like,
Dimitri's with him. Okay,
he shows him, and he's like, "Well, you've got nothing to ignite it," and he's like, "Cell phone," and straps it. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway,
he shoots the battery, explodes it, and then so that was the other kind of notable kill in the movie. So we have our 4 kills.
And then so it's not, and then after this is where they kind of somehow end up back together, and Arcady reveals that. So I don't remember. Arcady reveals that he doesn't want to kill Dimitri. He wants to use him to kickstart a new revolution.
Right.
Because up to this point, it's that he's mad that he abandoned them and he wants to kill him.
Yeah. So this was before. So Dimitri and Michael Knox make their way back to Arcady. Is this so after they see Arcady? Is that when they have the heart-to-heart, or is it before? And he gives them a speech about the chicken and all that. And it's literally like Pierce Brosnan's longest line in the entire movie.
Yes, and that's how he's kind of meant to be his moment of realization. That's not earned, but yeah.
He's completely useless in this movie.
Yeah.
I think they literally got him for the poster.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't do any acting. He lets his mustache do all of the acting for him.
He's wearing that cap most of it, so he's like hiding under that a lot of the time.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can't remember which actor it was. It might have been John McClane himself, Bruce Willis, but somebody asked him, like, why do you do all these crappy straight-to-video movies? Like, you're walking around Walmart and you see all these movies that have this major actor in it, and you figure, why would they even do this? And he said, like, sometimes you need a new pool house. That's basically it.
Just keeps them ticking along.
Yeah, you're not doing it for the art.
Yeah,
you need a new pool house. And I think that was, this was Pierce Brosnan's pool house. So it shows up for about 20 minutes. They put him on the poster. He has his heart-to-heart with Dave Bautista talking about a chicken and sacrificing the chicken in order to save the rest of the flock. And then they make their way back to Arcady, his brother, and that's when Arcady tells him that no, he doesn't inspire revolutions in their country. It's all Dimitri. Oh, and that's when we see the shots of the people waiting in the streets because they've heard the mention of Dimitri.
Yes, so stupid
in Sokovia.
Yes. And then how did they end up back up on the roof again? They jump out of that. Because the final showdown's on the roof again, isn't it? Where they're handing off.
Yeah, so there's a handoff at that point with... Oh, no, wait. So it was before that. Because that was when... I don't know, man. Because they make their... What's the handoff? Danny
for Dimitri. And that's where...
Okay, so it had to have been before this.
He has the hat on, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Yeah, and then the handoff happens. Dimitri gets away with Danny. Yeah.
And then Dimitri still gets captured anyways.
Yes, because then the computer guy comes, doesn't he? And he's just random.
Oh, that's right.
Because I guess he got sacked from his job doing the computer stuff, trying to find him. So then he just happens to find them running down the stairwell and takes them, right?
Yeah. And then that's when they bring him to Arcady. And then
yes, and that's where Knox gets off the roof by landing on the video screen.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And then there's the banner there, which was the actual banner from the real farewell. Yeah. So he swings across that like Tarzan, and then nobody notices at all.
Yeah. And then I guess they slowly start to realize at this point that everything's going wrong. So Arcady shoots Dimitri in the end. No, Dimitri shoots himself, doesn't he?
Yes, because he doesn't want to restart the revolution. He doesn't want any part of it.
So he turns the gun on himself, shoots himself in the head, and I guess that's when Knox starts to realize, like, holy crap, he's going to blow up the stadium now. He doesn't care. This is where Faisal gets his... He can't do his job. No one will listen to him to clear the stadium. So he tells them all he has a bomb. And obviously, like, the racial bias, everyone sees a brown guy yelling he has a bomb. So then everyone starts clearing the stand out. Because the C4's only in one corner of the stand it should be.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Well, at least that they know of.
Here's my thing. Why would West Ham allow their brand to be all over this?
I don't know. It's really weird, isn't it?
It's like the film was extremely vulgar. Like, there was F-bombs every 5 minutes. There was gratuitous violence.
Yep.
But then on top of that, like, it painted the West Ham fans as like xenophobic.
Yep.
Just completely negative. Everything about the sport was kind of like spat upon.
Yeah.
So why?
It's just so weird, right? It's like they don't care. It was for the paycheck. The club's kind of owned by these two guys known as the Dildo Brothers.
Ah, okay.
Because they're called Sullivan and Gold. They made their money in like sex shops, essentially.
Oh.
And they're just so not well respected. They're basically known for doing anything for money. One of their chief execs is a woman who's on The Apprentice. She's a judge on The Apprentice in England. Okay. And people kind of think she's just like a muse for them to say whatever, because they're not very public facing. It's all her. So yeah, I just think they probably did it for money, and they literally don't care because they're the most like not care owners ever. They're the kind of ones they don't invest. They invest what they make from the team, and by skimming enough, they don't.
Oh, okay.
There's no real, and like the deal they got with the Olympic Stadium, like they basically pay nothing for it. The rent is
It was already built.
next to nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't even pay for all the security costing and all the police and stuff. The council pay for it. They got this really good deal. So by rights, they should be spending crap tons of money. They should be like blowing money to try and get in the Champions League, and they just don't, because they make enough money off gate receipts and everything with none of the costs to maintain
That was the
the
intention,
stadium.
right? Like they were supposed to go from the 35,000 seater at Upton Park to the London Stadium, which was 60,000.
Yeah.
And then you figure that extra revenue from the seating was supposed to go towards buying players, and it didn't happen. I think they're worse off now than they were before, like on and off the pitch, right?
Yeah. Like they've been through multiple managers. They've been always flirting with relegation. Like they've been relegated before in recent times, but they've had better years for sure where they're up there challenging for like Europa League spots, and they just haven't been for years. It's been just years of wasted working their way through managers.
Yeah, they've been like mid-table since how long now, right?
Yeah. So I have no idea. I just think the owners don't care. They just want the money.
But was there any blowback from like the supporters themselves being
I don't
portrayed in this
remember,
light?
because I don't really know much about this film. I couldn't find anything necessarily to say they were that bothered. I have to look into it afterwards.
It's just so strange, man. Like,
Yeah.
it just
Doesn't make sense.
terrible portrayal of their own supporters. Yeah.
Yeah. So Faisal pretends he has a bomb. We see the old lady that abused him earlier coming back into the stand when it's empty, and she's just sat there.
Racist old lady. Yeah.
And then the explosion happens and blows up, presumably with him and the old lady there. And Knox is trying to get back to the security wing because Arcadie's up on the screen yelling, and all you can see is him with Danny. And this is maybe the only scene that's remotely like powerful in any sort of way, just because you spent the whole movie not expecting it to happen. You thought they'd find some way to get out of it exploding. And it is just really weird seeing a football stadium blow up. It's like your worst fear. Like, remember when it happened in France a few years back where those guys were hurling bombs at the outside of the stadium and stuff? And it's just like, you're always worried that football is such like an easy target for something like this.
Yeah.
So then it's
only what happened at the Ariana Grande concert was it was an explosion, right?
Yeah. Some guys
And that would
walked
have been
in
a few years earlier. Yeah.
blew up the Manchester arena.
Yeah.
So it's just like, your worst fear of something like that happening, and it does. And it's for a moment, it's briefly sort of like, but then you see Dave Bautista just stood on the pitch, sort of tearful.
This was his moment to shine.
And then it's just like, pulls it all back, and then it's like, actually,
He
no.
earned his pool house with this one scene.
Yeah. And it does linger for a long time, and you do think she might actually be dead for a second until Dave Bautista looks at the screen and realizes the screen behind Arcadia says it's only the 85th minute and we're at the 90th minute. He like does a little look across at the scoreboard and he's just like, crap, he's not dead. This was pre-recorded again. So like the old scrub the tape back and play it trick worked again.
But the hacker was killed at this point.
Sorry?
The hacker was already killed, so I'm wondering who did it for him.
He picked up a few things along the way.
The guy ran a script for him.
Yeah. So we think she's dead, but then she isn't. So everyone's trying to get out of the stadium. So Arcadia's trying to sneak out with her. And then Knox goes, he's yelling for her. And eventually he kind of catches up to them somehow amongst all the crowd. And he's just walking there with her. So
the guy's walking out so casually with her too.
Yeah, just like, this is my girlfriend that I came with.
Uncle Mike. And he's just walking at like a regular pace.
Yeah, and so then they kind of have another confrontation. Arcadia spins around, gun to the head, and he's like, crap, what am I going to do? I can't get this. And then it's one of those, they obviously thought this was so cool. He says to Danny, use your head. And it's a callback to earlier when she headbutted him.
Yeah.
So then,
he winks at her.
Yeah. So then she headbutts Arcadia enough so that she can get away from him. And then he shoots him like in the shoulder and then in the head. And he's definitely dead. So Arcadia's dead.
Yeah.
And then it's at this point we The one plot line that's unresolved is what happened to Faisal, and now everyone's worrying. So it cuts back, and he's like somehow covered by a piece of the roof and is just coming out of the rubble as Michael Knox has come back to look for him. And then the old lady has somehow survived as well. And the film ends with them all kind of walking out, and the police chief dialing the radio into Knox again and says, "Good job. Just please don't come to the final." Then that's the end of the film.
I think that's the last. Well, her mom runs onto the pitch.
Oh, yeah, mum, because she came from the pub.
Which left me wondering if they're trying to get people out of the stadium because there was a terrorist attack. Why are they letting...
Yeah, how did she manage to scoot under the police tape? There was no way she would have been able to. Absolutely
Logic is non-existent in this movie.
Yeah.
So. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's do footy flicks.
Okay.
We'll do footy flicks. What did you think?
Again, not made by somebody that likes football, is completely dismissive of it. So you see the big kickoff, and literally that's all you see at first is them saying, "Right, it's the kickoff," and then it cuts to everyone's phone shutting off or something. And then everything about it is very simplistic. Like, there's a couple of other bits where it cuts to things. The free kick's kind of good, I guess. But other than that, it's just showing, like, it makes me wonder if they play, you know how you can sometimes pay to play on a pitch, and like they kick you up and stuff and you go out and do. I wonder if that's what it was, like some group of fans that just got to run around for 90 minutes, or not even that, 15 minutes to get enough footage. It was just terrible. Like, I wasn't impressed with any of it. Just lots of crappy close-up shots. No, like, real skills shown or anything. No. It's not the best footy flicks we've seen by a long shot.
There was zero authenticity. I mean, like, there are unique things about a Hammers game, right? Like forever blowing bubbles at the beginning of the match.
Didn't show any of that. Yeah.
There was none of that.
Yeah.
Like, they're almost disgusted by having to use football. Like, I guess if we're going to have to use a soccer stadium, then let's just make sure two teams are on there. Like, they couldn't even pick two authentic teams, right?
But then also, bizarrely, did get Jonathan Pearce, a real football commentator, and then did get Tony Cottee to be in the Sky Sports studio. So it's like at some point, but then I suppose the Sky Sports thing, they in part produced it.
Oh, that's true.
I guess that could be the only thing. Sky Cinema Original Films produced it. So I guess that's the only way they probably crowbarred Sky Sports being in there.
It's basically who's available, how much does it cost? Sure, whatever.
Like, yeah, we'll take Tony Cottee, sure. That's the best we can get.
The fans will love it because, look, we don't care. Just how much does it cost? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell them not to look Dave Bautista in the eyes. We'll be fine.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. So poor footy flicks.
Poor, very poor. And it had opportunity to be great because they had the authentic stadium. They had a full crowd there. I don't know how they did that.
Whatever way they did, yeah.
The shots looked good. Lighting, everything. I don't want to say the actual on-field play looked good because, like you were saying, it was atrocious, but it was just disappointing, man. They could have really just added a little bit of a few touches to make it authentic. It would have looked cool, but... Mm-hmm. They didn't care. There was zero love put into this film, which is, it's a shame. Could have been good.
Yeah.
So we don't have trivia. Like I said, we're on a bye week. So what was your favorite kill? 4 options. You have the first guy with his fingers going into the fryer, then combine that with the natural gas explosion in his face. And to top it off, to piss on his corpse, they threw him off the top of the stadium.
All right.
Second is Vlad, who was dunked face first into the fryer after being impaled. So Vlad the Impaler, haha. Third was the cell phone C4 combo in the washroom, which took out, I think, about 3 guys. So that's a multi-kill combo. And then your last option is Tatiana, who was impaled on the pole, just like her boyfriend, Vlad.
I got to go for Vlad. I just think the Impaler is the most ridiculous thing that they actually went with that. And then just his face being dunked in a deep fat fryer, which we should also point out. So before, in the part of that fight, he like puts Batista's head to like a hot plate and it lightly scalds his cheek.
I completely forgot he dragged his face against the patty grill. Yeah,
and he's like pushing him like all the way across the length of it. So that happens, and then also Dave Bautista also puts his hand in that hot fryer earlier on to grab a gun or something out of it. And it's just ridiculous. So then, yeah, him dunking in that's the best one for me. How about you?
I worked at McDonald's for a year, so they had those exact grills. And then they also had the fryers, obviously. So I touched the grills by accident on numerous occasions. It burns your hand right away, right? You're going to get the bubble on it.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had the maintenance guy who was cleaning the fryers, and he accidentally like slipped while cleaning one with a cloth, and his hand went into the fryer.
Oh,
it was brutal.
Oh no.
So, I mean, Dave Bautista getting both of those things within seconds of each other and then coming out unscathed was
ridiculous.
Impossible. Yeah. So my favorite kill, I'm going to go with the cell phone C4 combo in the washroom. I just thought it's cool improvisation on his part. The Vlad part was cool. What was great about that was that they actually committed to it and they showed his face after it got burned off to his girlfriend.
Oh, yes. When she goes back and his face. Yeah. So it's like a weird, fucked up texture. Yeah.
Yeah. They could have just played it off like, oh, he was burned. And then they just implied that she's seen his face. But no, they actually showed his face and it was all fucked up. Yeah. So
his cheeks look like noodles almost. Yeah. It's just really weird. Like these weird,
there was
loops.
Noodles in there. They molded to his face. I guess. Yeah. So what would you rate this out of 5 stars?
It's like a very, like a 2.5.
2.5?
Yeah, it's like, it's got its moments. It's a good action film, right? It's a dumb action film. I think we look down on it unfavorably because it's like a poor look at football kind of, but it's not a bad action film. If you didn't care about that, I'm sure you could put it on and completely enjoy it. What would you rate it?
I'm going to give it the same 2.5. I mean, I will admit I was never bored watching this movie.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Yeah, it wasn't a struggle to watch or anything.
Yeah, and it's not any worse than Taken. I mean, Taken has like that cool monologue, I'll find you and all that, which I think elevates it. But yeah, if you're a footy fan, you'll probably hate this movie because of all the inconsistencies and the kind of disdain they show for the sport. But never bored. Action set pieces were good. There wasn't a bunch of overuse of CGI, so good enough for a 2.5 for me.
Okay. So now where do we rank it?
Yeah.
I have the table up here. So in first we have Damn United still. Second, Mike Bassett, England manager. Third, Ultras. Fourth, Pele, Birth of a Legend. And fifth, Kicking and Screaming.
Oh, okay.
This might be one of the tougher ones to rank, to be honest.
I think it's pretty easy for me.
Where would you put it then? I'm
going to put it 5. I'm going to knock down Kicking and Screaming.
Okay. So I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I was bored watching Kicking and Screaming. I was like you just said, the action scenes in this were good. I didn't have a chance to get bored watching this.
Yeah, I think if they had actually put some care into the football aspect of this movie, it would have been great.
Yeah,
they got somebody you had that opportunity there. I mean, you have like how many opportunities are you going to have to be handed a stadium that's going to be torn down in a few months? And just do whatever you want with it, right? So
yeah, and even if they could have done more with Danny being wrapped up like a youngster in all that nostalgia or something, or have her wearing her dad's shirt or something from when they won a trophy or something, anything, little nudges to the fans, but nothing.
You know what they should have done is set this movie in a different time period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Put it in the 80s. You could have gone full out with like the 80s music.
Yeah.
You could have tapped into that like 80s. So in England, did you guys have 80s action stars like we had here in North America? I mean, you had Stallone and Schwarzenegger in the box office. So were those names as big?
Yeah. They were still the big guys over there, yeah.
So, I mean, you could have tapped into that and had kind of like a nostalgic throwback. And I think this came out probably before Stranger Things and all that stuff was big. Actually, Stranger Things is pretty old. But at that point, you already seen like a tap into of that nostalgia, right? Like
that people are into right now, rather than it being this made up modern day.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we're giving this production way too much credit. It's kind of like I was saying, it's a pool house funder. So
yeah,
that's all it was.
So you don't think it's better than Pele, Birth of a Legend?
Oh man, that's the only thing. Is it?
Because Pele was boring at times, like outright.
I fell asleep.
Boring. And you fell asleep. Raghav said he really struggled to get through it. I think I liked Pele the most, probably. And I would still question maybe this might be better than it. This is where it gets hard, right? This might be a better film. Yeah. But is it a better football film? The answer is definitely not.
Yeah.
So maybe then, maybe I've just talked myself around to not putting it above Pele. Now I've said that.
That's a tough one. I mean, Pele is a question if it's better than that. It's definitely better than Kicking and Screaming.
For sure. Okay.
So I'm going to say fifth, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to agree with you then. Let's go fifth.
Fifth. Okay, so what's the new ranking?
So we are in 6th place Kicking and Screaming, 5th place Final Score, 4th place Pele Birth of a Legend, 3rd place Ultras, 2nd place Mike Bassett England Manager, and 1st place still untouched is the Damn United.
Do you think we ranked Ultras too high?
Maybe. Time will tell. It can't stay up there. It can't stay in the Champions League spaces forever. Let's be honest.
It'll be knocked down.
It has to be.
It depends what we review this season.
That's true as well. Yeah.
Maybe we only review stinkers from here on out. All right. So that was Final Score. Solid at 5th in the table. So it's mid-table right now. And the club itself, West Ham.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's it for this week. Adam, what are you up to? I know you're streaming some matches every week.
Yeah, I've been streaming old Portsmouth games on my Joypad for Goalpost YouTube channel. And then I'm supposed to be playing in a Pro Evo tournament with some people from Lapsed Gamer Radio. So we'll see how that goes.
What's your gamer tag so people can find you?
It is Flameboy and then capital N, capital E. Not to be more confusing. There's a long story behind that I can't be bothered to get into. So yeah. And then what are you up to?
Yeah, I'm trying to hunker down and finally build out a3football.ca. I wanted to do some kind of behind the badge style features for the club identities that I worked on, but it seems like there's always something that kind of forces me to push that back a little further. So I'm hoping that I'll actually get some time to dedicate to that and put out some nice kind of little vignettes on each club that's been worked on. But thank you for joining us this week. The next film on the matinee is Bend It Like Beckham. We invite you to watch the film. Let us know what you thought of it before we do our next episode. Give us some feedback online. And also, if you can, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts and let us know what you think. With that, from the terraces to the theater of dreams, this has been Adam and Mark on Matchday Matinee.